Okay, so today we're going to start to look at cells, which are really the most basic part of biology that you guys will work with. Now, most of you are going on to either biology or pre-AP bio next year, so this is going to be a really good introduction for you guys to kind of give you an idea of what those first few weeks in class are going to look like. Now, you guys have seen cells before. You've worked with them. It might have been a few years, but if you look at the cell, you've got those main parts you're familiar with. You've got nucleus, mitochondria, you've got endoplasmic reticulum. But today we're going to look a little bit broader, and then you're going to go into an activity that you'll dig deeper into those different organelles. Now, before we can really truly start to appreciate biology, you have to know how different parts or levels of organization work together. So the most basic part of any living thing is going to be your cell. So cells, it's as small as you can go to still have a living thing. So we've talked about plant cells before, we've talked about animal cells, there's bacteria cells, fungi cells, there's cells found in things like mushrooms, there's cells make up protists, which is another classification of living thing you guys may not have worked with before. But cells will be found in all different types of living things, all organisms. Now, when you take a bunch of cells that are similar to each other and put them together, they are going to form what are called tissues. So, tissues are a bunch of similar cells working together for a common function. So, a common tissue that you guys are familiar with is skin tissue. Okay, so skin tissue, there's three main types of cells that make up your skin, and they are found in basically three different layers. And all together, they're going to start forming those different tissues inside of your skin. Now, when you have a bunch of similar tissues come together, they can form an organ. So organs, think about your heart, liver, stomach, things that if you hear about on TV or in the movies when they say doing an organ transplant. That is what we're looking at here. Organs are made of similar tissues. When you have many organs together, they are going to form what is called an organ system. So you have your respiratory system, that's made up of your lungs, and you have your circulatory system, that is all the veins and arteries in your heart inside of your body. Think about your digestive system, okay? That's going to be your esophagus and your mouth, your stomach, okay? Everything that works with food for that particular organ system. And when you have many organ systems brought together, that can form an organism. Now, an organism does not have to have all 5 of these different levels. Some organisms are only one cell big, but when you have more complex organisms like plants, or you have animals, or you have human beings, where you're technically an animal as well, we are going to see all of these different levels of organization present. Now, when we are comparing different types of plants, animals, living things in general, we can tell differences between them. One of them can be based on the number of cells that their bodies are made up of. So, if you have an organism that is made up of just one cell, we refer to that as being a unicellular organism. Whereas if you have many cells coming to make something, that is a multicellular organism. So we are by far multicellular organisms. We have cells that make up our skin, our eyes, our bodies, everywhere across ourselves. So we are multicellular organisms. Now, with your multicellular organisms, you're going to have all of those cells inside of them that make up that one organism are going to do something special. They are going to specialize. So that means they're going to take on different shapes, different structures, and more importantly, different functions within that animal's body. So, in the middle of this diagram, we have a cell, and this cell essentially is a stem cell. So, you guys have probably heard about stem cells before, but stem cells have the ability to become other kinds of cells. That is why scientists spend so much time studying them. So, we have our stem cell here in the middle, and it's showing that stem cells, or really any cell inside of a multicellular organism, has the ability to become a cell that makes up your kidneys, or blood cells, or cells that make up your liver, or nerve cells. Okay? So cells in multicellular organisms will specialize. They will take on a special role, a special function inside of that organism. Now, there's a certain process that occurs when these cells specialize. So as these cells specialize, what is actually causing them to become those different types of cells, so nerve cells, muscle cells, brain cells, is that they are turning different kinds of genes on and off. So, with genes, think about genetics. Okay? So, if I were to take a sample of your hair, I could send your hair into a lab and they would see your genes inside of that hair. They would know that was you. But if I took some skin cells from you, a different part of your body, sent it to the lab, those skin cells would hold exactly the same genetics inside of them. So any cell on your body that makes up your body is going to hold the same genetics. Now what makes these cells different is their ability to turn those genes on and off, or to differentiate. So you're going to have that stem cell, say he's right here, and let's say he's going to turn some genes off, but he is going to turn genes on that will make him become a nerve cell. So he will take on the characteristics and the functions of a nerve cell, right? Let's say we have a stem cell in a different part of the body that is going through growth and is going to turn off the genes that would make it become a nerve cell, but it's going to turn on the genes that would make it become a muscle cell. So it will have a different role inside of that body than a nerve. Okay? Those muscle cells are going to be involved with helping you to move, helping you to be able to get up, sit down, run around like crazy, okay? Your muscle cells have a much different job than your nerve cells, which would be allowing you to feel sensations and to send signals throughout your body. Now, here's just the next couple slides are just some pictures of some specialized cells. So here we have your muscle cells. You can see that they are very, very long and skinny. And you can see all of these black dots inside of them. Drag this back over. You can see all of those black dots inside of them. Those are nuclei, and they usually have a lot of another organelle called mitochondria in them as well to provide them with energy. You have your red blood cells. They almost look like little donuts over here on the side. They serve a very different purpose from muscle cells because they are going to move nutrients and oxygen all throughout the body. And you also have cells that are found on the inside of your cheek. Now these have been dyed kind of a purplish blue color to allow you to be able to better see them. But you can see how all of these cells look very, very different. They all have very different roles inside of your body, but they all hold the same genetics. If I sent any one of these to a lab, those scientists would know that these cells came from you based on the genes they find inside of them. Now, just wanted to show this to you really quick. We normally only think of specialized cells being found in animals. Any multicellular organism has them, including plants. So some differentiated plant cells, there's guard cells. So you're going to see the structure here. It looks kind of like a donut, and this structure is called a stomata. So stomata are actually found on plant leaves and stems, and they're going to open and close to let some gases into your plant, some gases out, usually for photosynthesis and respiration, so thus plants can make and release energy. In plants, they also have special types of cells in xylem. So these cells you can see that they are big and they're usually very, very hollow. They're going to transport water throughout that plant. And you can also see these cells found that make up pollen as well. So pollen, when it's in an individual grain, it's only one cell big. Now, for those of you who have allergies, you can actually tell why from looking at this picture, because pollen grains are usually very, very spiky. So you can see all of these little spikes coming off of these pollen grains. When those land in your nasal cavities, they're going to actually essentially be poking you. If you're allergic to them, you don't have the right receptors to handle them, and they're going to scratch you, irritate the inside of your nose. And that's what causes you to sneeze and have runny, itchy, watery eyes, all of that fun stuff. Now, when we are looking at a cell, there's two categories that you can observe. Those are going to be eukaryotic cells and prokaryotic cells. So the two large classes of cells you guys have probably spent the most time studying before are your plant and your animal cells. They are both different kinds of eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells, the main example is going to be bacteria. Now, prokaryotic cells, eukaryotic cells, they are very, very different in terms of their size and in terms of what they contain. So, let's look a little bit deeper at our eukaryotic cells, because that is what we're going to focus on more. Next year, when you are all sophomores or you're taking those different biology classes, then you can study more in depth those prokaryotic cells. Now, eukaryotes, what makes a cell a eukaryotic cell is that they're going to have a nucleus, and they also have membrane-bound organelles. A membrane-bound organelle is going to be, well, let's just think about your nucleus. Technically, it's membrane-bound organelle as well. You're going to have the organelle itself, and then it is going to actually have a layer, a membrane around it that is going to separate it from the rest of your cell. So you can look inside of this animal cell, and you can see all of these different organelles that are kind of floating around, and almost every single one of them has a membrane around them that's going to make it be distinct, separate from other organelles in the cell. Now, eukaryotes, they're going to be your plants and your animals. They're going to be fungi, so think mushrooms, and they will also be cells that are protists. Now, eukaryotic cells, they're usually more complex than prokaryotic cells as well. So to help you remember what a eukaryotic cell is, I want you to always think of yourselves as you are eukaryotic. You have studied your whole life about animal cells and how inside of your cells you have all these organelles. Yeah, that's a eukaryotic cell. You are eukaryotic. You have organelles inside of the cells of your body. Now, make sure that you have all of these notes copied into your note packet. And now I'm going to need for you guys to go onto Canvas and go to assignments and go to the link for the note presentation. You guys are going to go in and fill in your own notes. These are what you are going to use to study for the quiz and also for your final, which will be next week over biology.